Hi. I'm so sorry that this video is late. I just could not keep up with my schedule, and there was just a bunch of things that happened mid-week that kind of ruined that for me, which, what can you do? But we finally reached the end of OC February, which is crazy to me because it blew by so quickly. But I think it's been a ton of fun. There was a lot of ups and downs, I think, doing this, because it was really ambitious, I guess, for me, to try and figure out how I would set up content for this, and I think it's taught me a lot about what I want to be creating when it comes to video content. So, thank you for everyone's feedback on all the videos that I've been making for OC February, and here's to hoping that it returns next year. With all that aside, and now out of the way, I revive OCs a lot, and by that I mean I love breathing new life into them. All of my OCs that I have currently are usually characters that I've reinvented over and over and over again when it comes to story, when it comes to design, when it comes to names, even if some of those names never stick. I love reinventing them and basically recreating them in ways that they grow alongside me. So, I've raised a lot of OCs from the dead, lore-wise and just objectively, if that's even the right word for this. But I just kind of wanted to give advice when it comes to revamping a character for maybe a story that you're creating, a universe, which is what most of these are for. So to start this, I had a bunch of older characters that I'd been meaning to breathe new life into, and I put that on a wheel, and then I spun it around, and I did this 3 times, and I'll try and describe my process for all 3 of them. Here are all of the things that I try to keep in mind when I'm revamping an old character. First things first, I like to conceptualize their character. What do I want out of this character? What do I want them to convey? What is their relevance? Even if they're going to be basically a background character or just an extra of sorts, I still want to give them a sort of story and a reason for being there, even if that reason is very minimal. And what type of relationships or bonds that they may have, if they have any to the main cast or people adjacent to the main cast, all that type of stuff. And then after that, I try and figure out specific things when it comes to the actual character itself. Like, what concepts do you want to keep? Are there specific things or quirks or personality? And this can be just as little as one thing, because sometimes a character just won't work out in retranslation to a different sort of media. So sometimes you're gonna have to not keep a lot, or just keep nothing. But sometimes, there's specific things that you can pick out of this character that you think were unique, or the gimmick was something that you could redo in a better format now. Because I find that I have a lot of characters that I look back on that I go, yeah, this had something going on, and I think I could do something better with it with all of the knowledge that I have now. So you can keep as much of it or just as little of it as you like. And then the second part to that really is, what do you need to add or integrate into the actual character? So this depends on what type of thing you're inserting these new characters into. What about this new environment will change their character? Are there specific things that you want to integrate into the character to make them seem more real? Are there some things that you need to add in order to give them more depth? Just all of those sorts of things pertaining to the actual world around them. That's basically my entire process when it comes to creating, or not really creating, but redoing all of these characters. With that in mind, I'll just show the 3 that I did and try to describe my process on that. So, for this first one, I have them listed on Artfight, but I never really did anything with them. I had some things I wanted to do that just never fully played out. They've kind of just rotted on my Artfight for the past 2-3 years. I think it's 2 years. But there's a bunch of like little gimmicks about this character that I really liked and that I was hoping to retranslate into the Merverse. And I've talked about the Merverse before. I have like a whole video, 2 videos on just a little bit of background on that. With those in mind, right? I kind of got to work on what I wanted to keep when it came to this character and what I thought I could scrap. Starting off, I knew for this role, originally I wanted it to be more of a side character. And initially I wanted him to be a background character, essentially, with no relevance to the story. But the more that I actually developed this character and decided what I wanted him to convey, I realized that he would have to have at least a little bit more of a role in the Merverse. So he basically had no lore attached to them. There was nothing, so I had a blank canvas besides the design to work with. And after figuring all of that out, there was the 2 things that I had to do after was decide what I wanted to keep and what I wanted to scrap. So for sure what I wanted to keep was the eyeball gimmick. I wasn't sure going into the design what I wanted that to involve and what lore reasons there would be for this character having that. And I wanted to at least keep a little bit of the color palette. And in the end, I didn't keep as much of it as I was hoping, but I think it was important for integrating him into the nation that I put him in. For scrapping, I had to scrap his name. Ty just sounded too similar to other characters' names because besides just Ty, there was Tyson, Tyler, and Tyson went by Ty for a little bit, and if you couldn't tell, that would really just muddle up things in a way that it was just not going to work. So I decided to scrap his name, and alongside that, his clothing, though it's very nice and simple and casual. For that reason, it was easy to put him on Artfight and make a reference for him. It just was not going to work if I was going to integrate him into these new sort of environments. So I had to do a lot of fixing when it came to that, and then just kind of started to work from there. So Amare was the name of another character that I had that was also scrapped, but because they ended up being similar in color palettes in the end to this new, variant of this character, I decided to just take that name and slap it onto this guy, and that's just how it went. But I could go into the lore things I had planned for him, but essentially he's located in Vinca, and Vinca is a very Venetian-inspired sort of nation in the sense that the fashion, the architecture, all of that's kind of reminiscent or vaguely inspired by that sort of thing. And the vassals themselves, their whole gimmick is also based around Venetian carnival, basically. So I kind of had to integrate that into his design in some way, because at that point I wanted him to be more relevant in Vinca as a nation, and I wanted that palette to then be sort of slapped onto him, so I couldn't really save as much of that as I'd liked. In terms of describing as to why he looks the way he did, I had a bunch of things, including magic reasons, because the magic system is very messy. But it's funnily enough because of this character that I was able to actually sew up all of those holes and connect a bunch of things. And because of that, I think it's really nice to bring these characters into these worlds for this reason, because then it gives me more time to think about not just the central characters, but characters outside of that and their lives. Good stuff. I was genuinely surprised and everything was clicking and I felt amazing doing this one. And as of right now, he is the current Vinken Revelator, and I'm hoping to explain that role a little bit later when I actually do like a Merverse breakdown on the magic system. But know that this takes a toll on his body, and as such, his appearance is one that seems vaguely non-human, or at least dying in some way because of the strain it puts on his body, which was now the reason that he looks like that. And I don't know, I felt like that sewed up a lot of things, including the actual distinct traits of Vinken residents. So, good stuff. I had a lot of fun with revamping this design. Moving on to the next one. I did not strike well, and I did want to keep the integrity of just going with what the wheel decided, leaving it up to fate, and just going with it. It landed on a character called Stabby, and this was sort of a persona or just a favorite OC for a while. In many ways, this OC was a precursor to another one of my OC's, Goob, as in a lot of the personality traits, a lot of the backstory ended up being repurposed for a later character, Goob. So there was a lot of things that I think I needed to revamp in terms of this character. So I know that this one was going to be a background character no matter what. This was not going to have any relevance, but I did want to use this character to sort of flesh out another nation that I'd been working on that needed a little bit more of that. They're a background character located in Xeranthemum. This character specifically is dressed in Filipiniana just because I wanted to include my culture into my world, because obviously, like 90% of the cast is Filipino. I might as well add a couple things for my own happiness. There was a lot that I had to work with in Xeranthemum in terms of tradition and what they would actually wear, so in the process of making this character, I was able to figure out a couple things. And though this current fashion that I've used for this character is post-Spanish colonization, I hope to include and incorporate things before that. Tangent aside, then I had to figure out what I was keeping and what I was scrapping, and because this character just had so much stuff that didn't work in the world of the Merverse, there was a lot I had to scrap. But in terms of keeping, I had one thing, and that was the gimmick of the fangs, because I thought they were cute. There was something I think I could do with that, but the rest of it just had to go. The name was just not working. I don't know what I was thinking when I was naming Stabby. I think that's very indicative of me as a person at that time. The color palette was already too similar to the last character that I'd done. There was a lot that I had to scrap in terms of that. And the personality itself already was too similar to Goob and other characters that I already had, so I had to tone down a lot of that personality too. In many ways, this is kind of like a new character, sort of. I didn't say that I would revive these characters completely right, they're coming back a little bit wrong. So this character, the new and improved Stabby, is now called Salie, and she is a Xeranthemite merchant. I'm pretty pleased with the way the design turned out. I think there are a couple things that I will go back and alter just slightly. In terms of fleshing out like a little bit more about the other nations, because I only primarily focus on the Vinken nation itself, so this was nice to play around with. I think she turned out really nice, and even though there's still a lot that I changed when it came to this character, I do see kind of some of that spirit is left in there. You know what I mean? I did what I could, and I think she turned out really cute. Anyway, this last character also had just terrible name. I think there's a pattern here with the names that I was picking, and it just was not working. But Pasta. And Pasta, I also don't think I had a lot when it came to the actual character things going on in there. Because of the red and green weird eyeball thing, I decided to put her in Fresia. And Fresia is another nation which also has a little bit more that I wanted to explore when it came to casual characters, so this is another background character. There was a lot fashion-wise that I was going with for her. I played around a lot when it came to expanding that color palette. I did want to keep the pink hair because it's pink hair. It's cute. But besides that, there was a lot that I had to scrap, such as the rest of the clothing color palette. That's basically all that there was for this character. She was very baseline, non-existent, everything. That in mind, I still wanted to keep her hair and that intact, but everything else was basically scrapped for this character. Going into it, I also wanted to try a little bit more face shape differences because the last two were pretty round, so I wanted to have her have just very slightly sharper features. I think it turned out pretty cool, and I had a lot of fun working with her color palette. I might go back and slightly change her hair though, because again, the pink hair was just super cute, but I'm not really sure on it because I feel like it clashes with the rest of the color palette, but we'll just have to see. And as of right now, story-wise, I'm not exactly sure where I would place her, because I'm sure she is somewhere in the background of all of this, and Fresia is a very complicated nation itself, so figuring out where I want to place her and all of that, I'm not really sure. There's not really much I had to do with this character, and this was the last character that I did before stressing out about this deadline, so she's a little unfinished and rough around the edges. I still haven't named her. If you do have a name for this character or ideas for this character, anything, just let me know. I'd be happy to hear them and then respond to them. I love discussing in the comments. With that, I think it wraps up all three of these little guys, and I had a lot of fun with this. I think in many ways it helped me explore a little bit more when it came to world building, because I feel like I only limit myself to the main cast or the extension of the main cast. So to do characters that are kind of disconnected but still existent in this world, I think it was pretty cool. I'm very sentimental about my characters, so to kind of intimately revive them and give this attention to them and that kind of thing, I think it's really neat. Even though some of these kind of went through a lot of reworking, I still feel like the essence of these characters are still kind of there. And it's really fun to see how characters evolve over time, and I'm sure at some point I'll be redoing a bunch of these characters again, and the loop will continue. That's all. Everything out of the way now. I do want to talk a little bit more about OC February and just kind of how that went for me. Thank you, everyone, again, for this really fun month. I think trying this out has been just super fun, and I hope to do more central topic month dedicated things in the future. Maybe. We'll just have to see, but I do hope to do this again next year, and we'll just have to see how that goes. But for now, that's basically everything. I'm not gonna not talk about OCs anymore, because I love talking about OCs. I'm still gonna be talking about OCs. That's after doing OC February, I've decided that I still do want to do more OC-based content and showing all of these different cool things to do with them. So that's not going away anytime soon. Please do not worry about that. But until it's OC February again, you're not gonna get a whole month worth of, like, OC content. Sorry, guys. But yeah, that's all. Bye.